Okay, greetings from Canada again. I'm gonna try to make this video as quick as I can. Restating and recapping what I've been talking about before, just to clarify for some of the people that have watched my video. Obviously, some of them have been a little bit upset about the comments I've been making. First off, I'm not claiming a victor in this conflict. I'm saying at best it was a stalemate, but stalemate's just a word. If you actually look at the conflict and you look at the lives it's destroyed, the people that have died, it's just chaos. And it just ended one day. And everything went back to normal. But looking at the facts as it is, there's no going off of one of the major issues that some of the viewers have is the native insurrection in the West. I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier, that there's no way the British government centralized some kind of plan, dispatched it, sent it to Canada, and told the drunk, old, miserable British governor here to somehow incite native insurrection in the West or use some kind of step-by-step policy. The British government had barely any foothold in the West, Western Canada, or any kind of nodes of shipment or transportation into Western America. The only way would be through backcountry frontier and lakes, portages, and so on. There would be no way for a mass link up of any kind of that could justify any kind of equipment. I'm talking cannons, guns, powder kegs, foodstuffs. So I mean, there was no centralized effort in insurrection. I mean, insurrection is you're caught. There's paperwork in place. There's guns that say made in Britain on it, or whatever, or Upper Canada keg with bacon inside. Now that's an insurrection. But if the natives come up to Rupert's Land and trade some beaver pelts and buy a couple of rifles and start shooting American farmers because they're taking their land, that's none of our damn business. And frankly, America's the exact same way. I mean, the Hudson's Bay Company ran Western Canada. They're not going to shy away from any kind of fur trade. And they're not going to have some kind of centralized documentation to say, oh, we have a gun registry. What are you using this for? Is this for hunting or is this for killing American settlers? Well, you know what? Frankly, we didn't give a damn. And neither did you. And you, the Americans, were arming the French through economic means, iron, pig iron, food, wheat, guns, ammunition, armaments, timber for ships, so on. Being used to fight the British Army because the French economy was starved at the time, and British government policy was to starve it continually through affecting naval commerce and through trading. So when Americans are caught in a merchant navy coming through to France, trading with them, we can obviously see that we weren't jumping for joy, and that obviously we would board the ship and take some of these provisions and find out that some of the people on board have Cockney accents and Cornwallian accents, and say, well, hey, I don't think any Americans have those kind of accents. And then we do a quick little investigation. We realize that the entire fucking ship is British, that they just disbanded and just took off for better wages. If American soldiers were caught deserting, which they are all the time going up to Canada, the American government loses their shit, and they basically lobby our government, and we usually send them back. So, I mean, it's funny how when times change, so does America. And just like how, when countries try to send in food to stop the blockade of Israel and Palestine, the Israelis and the Americans take a big shit, and they go eat crap too. Okay? So, I mean, it's clearly that, when you're caught shipping things in, you're seen as helping the people of that country. So, American Merchant Navy was guilty as charged. Trade is just as important as war when you're fighting a war. Now, the other casus belli of impressment and so on, I won't get much into other than that. But we've talked about the native insurrections, we've talked about the other things I've said. But the Napoleonic Wars were fought during. Sorry, I should say that again. The War of 1812 was fought during the Napoleonic War, and given the position of America at the time, internally they knew they wouldn't be able to fight the full might of the British military if they weren't engaged in a previous engagement. So what I'm saying is, if Britain wasn't in a conflict with France, America wouldn't have attacked Britain. This is simple calculation, because what happened is the British landed troops and they took Washington. That would have happened as soon as possible if Britain wasn't caught up in a war with France. And the war would have been over. And it's possible, but if America invaded Canada, Britain wasn't involved in a war with France, that America could have very well become a colony again because of that loss. They could have lost your freedom over this stupid decision. But you're lucky that Great Britain was devastated by the war with France, because they weren't ready to fight another conflict in the middle of the wilderness in North America. And America clearly knew this, and they knew that its best chance for about 100 years would be to fight Great Britain now. Is the best time to go coast to coast and to bring up all the grievances I have like a little sissy and declare war. Even though our American officers and British officers were literally drinking wine the night of the declaration, and they basically toasted to war. But other than that being said, they still lost anyways. Lost as in the original expectations for winning the war on the American perceptions weren't fulfilled. So in your minds, you lost. Canadians won because we had expectations of defending Canada and Great Britain, and we did. So there was no territorial gains, so a strategic victory wasn't possible. But in the hearts and minds, Canadians feel like we've won, and Americans feel like they've been, dogged or something. The ironic thing is that if America didn't invade Canada, because Canada wasn't really the prize, it was mostly just to get out west, Oregon and all that. But Canada would have very much likely become a part of the United States through osmosis. It would have just been absorbed one day. And Canadian traders, merchants, and the local populations who were sympathetic to the Americans. I think 6 out of every 10 people in Canada at the time were Americans. They made up a very large percentage of traders, merchants, and so on, and the Canadian population was small. So what they basically did was they nationalized Canada into a full fighting force. We developed our culture and a lot of our national pride after that conflict. Rallying under the monarchy, rallying under one common force, because to fight somebody you need to find out who you really are. You need to say to myself, what makes me different from these people? And in America, it's the same thing. American nationalism in its infancy became in the War of 1812. The Revolutionary War didn't really start, but the War of 1812 was when American nationalism started. Star Spangled Banner, and the national anthem, guns firing and all that. That was from the War of 1812. And then America really found its true spirit in fighting the British. Even though they didn't live up to their expectations, it definitely changed relationships for years to come. And that's everything I have to say.